The ancient Greek philosopher Socrates is considered by many to be one of the founders of Western philosophy. However, he didn't write anything down himself, so we only have second-hand accounts of his life and teachings through the works of his students, most notably Plato. Socrates was born around 470 BC in Athens and died there in 399 BC after being sentenced to death for impiety and corrupting the youth, but despite this, he continued to seek wisdom and understanding until his death. One of the most interesting things about Socrates is that he claimed to have a special relationship with the gods. He said that he had a voice inside him that told him what to do and what not to do. This voice became known as the Oracle of Delphi, and it's believed that it gave Socrates his ideas for philosophy. But what exactly was this inner voice? Was it really a god speaking to Socrates, or was it something else entirely? In today's video, we'll explore what Plato tells us about Socrates and the inner world from which his wisdom arose. We'll also discuss what this means for us today, and how we can tap into our own inner wisdom. Let's begin. Their essay story in Plato-esque dialogue called The Republic, where Socrates is talking with some friends about the nature of the soul. Socrates says that the soul is like a charioteer who drives a chariot. The charioteer represents the rational part of the soul, while the chariot represents the irrational part. Socrates believes that the task of the philosopher is to turn the horses of the soul toward the good and the beautiful. He also believes that the soul can be immortal, living on after the body dies. In order to achieve this, the philosopher must first conquer the desires of the irrational part of the soul. Only then can they reach the realm of the eternal and immutable soul. Let's ask ourselves, how did Socrates conquer his own irrational self? The answer, according to Plato, is that Socrates listened to the inner voice within him, which we can call intuition. This inner voice is a kind of guide that helps us to discern what is right and what is wrong. It speaks to us even when we don't want to hear it, and it never grows weaker. Socrates knew that this inner voice was always with him, even when he was alone. He used it to help him make decisions and to set him on the right path. But why should we listen to this inner voice? What makes it so special? The answer is that this inner voice is a direct connection to the divine. It's a way of tapping into the wisdom and knowledge of the universe itself. When we listen to this inner voice, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities that we never knew existed. We begin to see the interconnectedness of all things, and we realize that we are all part of something greater than ourselves. Now, you might be thinking that this all sounds a bit too mystical or spiritual for you, and that's okay, but I encourage you to keep an open mind. There's nothing wrong with believing in something greater than yourself. In fact, it can be very comforting to know that you're not alone in this world. There's a higher power that is always with you, guiding you and protecting you. What's interesting about Socrates is that he was able to use this inner voice to help him understand the world around him. He didn't just accept things at face value. He questioned everything, and he never stopped seeking wisdom. This is what made him such a great philosopher, and it set something that we can all strive for. Socrates was born in Athens, Greece, around 470 BC, during a time when the city-state was at the height of its power. He grew up hearing stories of the Greek gods and goddesses and their interactions with humans. These stories had a profound impact on him, and he began to believe that the gods were trying to tell him something. As a young man, Socrates served in the Athenian army and fought bravely in battle. This experience taught him the importance of courage and self-control. He realized that the greatest battles were often fought within oneself, and that true strength came from mastering one's emotions. He developed a method of questioning that allowed people to explore their own beliefs and ideas. This method became known as the Socratic method, and it's still used today to help people think critically and solve problems. Socrates' teachings were revolutionary for his time. He challenged people to question everything and not just accept what they were told. He taught them that the unexamined life is not worth living and that we all have a duty to strive for excellence. However, not everyone liked Socrates' teachings. Some people thought that he was a troublemaker and that he was trying to undermine the authority of the government. They accused him of impiety and corrupting the youth, and eventually he was put on trial. Socrates was found guilty and sentenced to death. He could have escaped, but he chose to stay in Athens and drink the poison hemlock. As he was dying, he said, "I have always regarded and spoken of our soul as having two parts, the one immortal and the other mortal. This shows us that Socrates believed that the soul could live on after the body died. He wasn't afraid to die because he knew that his soul would live on. Did Socrates discover the subconscious mind? Socrates may not have used the term subconscious mind, but his ideas about the soul and the afterlife suggest that he believed in a kind of unconscious realm where the soul could live on after death. We know that the human brain is capable of storing memories and experiences that we do unconsciously remember. This is the subconscious mind. And it's possible that this is what Socrates was referring to when he talked about the soul. Now, Socrates taught us to conquer ourselves first. Socrates was a master of self-awareness, and he understood the importance of conquering oneself before trying to conquer others. He knew that the greatest battles were often fought within oneself, and that true strength came from mastering one's emotions. This lesson is as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. We live in a world where it's easy to be distracted by external things, but if we want to be successful, we must learn to focus on what's really important. This means developing self-awareness and self-control and learning to manage our emotions effectively. When we do this, we'll be able to conquer the challenges that life throws at us and achieve our goals. The silent wisdom of Socrates, listening to the soul. Socrates was a man who valued silence. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle and forget to take time for ourselves. We're constantly bombarded with information and distractions that pull our attention away from what's really important. But if we take the time to quiet our minds and listen to our inner wisdom, we can find clarity, peace, and direction in our lives. This doesn't mean that we need to sit in silence for hours on end. Even just taking a few minutes each day to close our eyes, breathe deeply, and tune out the noise can make a big difference. When we do this, we open ourselves up to the possibility of hearing our inner voice and following its guidance. And who knows, we might just surprise ourselves with what we discover. Socrates and the origins of inner dialogue. When we think about Socrates, we often imagine a man deep in thought, lost in his own inner world. But what many people don't realize is that Socrates was actually quite talkative. He loved engaging in lively discussions and debates with others. So where did this inner dialogue come from? What inspired Socrates to spend so much time in his own head? Well, according to Plato, Socrates' inner dialogue was the result of his constant questioning of the world around him. He was never satisfied with accepting things at face value, and he always wanted to get to the bottom of things. This led him to develop a method of questioning known as the Socratic method, which involved asking a series of questions to help people examine their beliefs and ideas. But this method didn't just apply to his conversations with others. Socrates also used it with himself. He constantly questioned his own beliefs and assumptions. And this led to a rich inner dialogue that helped him to gain wisdom and understanding. This inner dialogue is what allowed Socrates to see things in a different light and to come up with innovative ideas. It gave him the ability to challenge conventional wisdom and to see beyond the surface of things. In a way, Socrates' inner dialogue was the birthplace of his wisdom. It was through his constant questioning and his willingness to challenge his own beliefs that he was able to gain the insight that made him such a great philosopher. Today, we can apply this same principle to our own lives. If we want to be wise and discerning, we must cultivate an inner dialogue. This doesn't mean that we need to spend all of our time navel-gazing and overthinking things, but by taking the time to reflect on our beliefs and to question our assumptions, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. In conclusion, the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates had a unique relationship with the inner voice within him that guided him toward wisdom and understanding. This inner voice, which we can refer to as intuition, enabled him to overcome his irrational self and led him to become one of the greatest philosophers of his time. By listening to this inner voice, Socrates was able to develop a method of questioning known as the Socratic method, which helped him to gain wisdom and understanding. He also believed that the soul could live on after death, a radical idea for his time. Today, we can learn from Socrates by cultivating our own inner dialogue and listening to our intuition. By doing so, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us and become more wise and discerning in our thinking.